And I remember we'd go to drafts and there'd be this die-hard contingent of fans who had this enormous knowledge about the players and about the business side of sports. Well, that's an example of being able to define, in our case, smart news for smart fans. And the other one was rewarding fans. We had a membership program that was aimed at rewarding people for being a sports fan. And that was something that fans couldn't get out of their mind, because we were the company that had the smart news, and we were the company that rewarded fans. In fact, when we launched a service that would go to pagers, that would send news to pagers, we beat every single player out there in the market, every media company, ESPN, MSNBC, all the companies out there. One trick to that was we offered more feeds than anyone else. We supplied 8 or 9 different feeds a day, as opposed to the one that they were doing. We had original reporters, they didn't. They were kind of aggregating, and we were focused on actually writing for that market. Number 4 is a business that is systematic. Say with me, systematic.
Systematic.
Another aspect of your business that is absolutely crucial. So as you're refining your business and figuring out what steps you're going to take and what works and what doesn't work, what days you should send emails and what days you shouldn't, what days you should drop a package in the mail, what days you shouldn't, what events you should go to, all of that becomes strategic to your organization. Not only is it strategic from a cash flow perspective and a revenue and profit perspective, but buyers will buy that from you. So when we were shopping our company and looking for private equity firms or partners who were interested in our assets, we were also selling a system that they could implement. And the idea was, for one private equity company, is what would happen if we took the interactive sports system and integrated with this other acquisition we're looking at. Now, a lot of times companies are bought solely because of their system, because they have a system and the other company doesn't. I remember when I worked on Wall Street, I worked for Payne Webber, and they bought a company called Blythe Eastman Dillon, which at the time was bigger than they were. And they bought that company because that company had customers, but Payne Webber had the systems. And one of the biggest challenges was trying to integrate these two systems. But the idea of integrating systems was a big conversation. You look at the Huffington Post and AOL. Why did that happen? They wanted to buy prestige. They wanted to buy, a level of value that would instantly change the AOL name from a company that was declining to a company that was growing. So what you want to do is map out the systems in your business with great detail. And don't underestimate the value of that. The system alone can be worth several $million. And don't think, there are lots of companies also that are bought and sold that don't have high revenue, that don't make a profit, but they have something that's strategic. So I want you to start thinking of your business more strategically. And one of those steps is a system. What do fast food companies, fast food restaurants, what do they have? They have a system. They don't have the greatest food, but they have a system. And what happens essentially is franchise owners buy into that system because they know they can operate that company. Real estate is like that in some quarters. The understanding the economics, understanding when you should have a management company, when you shouldn't. What the percentage of rents is to one, to cost and so forth, and figuring out the value of it, and then figuring out how you're going to run that company based on well-established systems. By the way, incidentally, talking about minority entrepreneurs, I said to you at one point that a lot of times someone will not want to do business with you because you're a minority or underestimate you. I remember one entrepreneur who decided he wanted to do a real estate deal, and they wouldn't show him the property. And this was a very, very successful entrepreneur. And they wouldn't show him the property. So what did he do? He had someone else go look at the property, and he had someone else act as the buyer for an anonymous buyer. And not only did he buy that property, He bought 3 properties, beachfront properties, real estate apartment buildings. I think each one had about 200 apartments. And boy, when they discovered who owned it, that was a shock. But he essentially went in and bought. So there are also other kinds of strategies in dealing with these kinds of situations. Anyone have any thoughts, questions, anecdotes, ideas that you want to throw out at this moment as we're going through this? Is any of this of value?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay. All right. Number 5 is focus on growth. Say with me, growth.
Growth.
The reason why your business is going to be attractive to both customers, partners, and potential buyers is because you're focused on growth. That you are growing in some way. You're either growing your top line or you're growing your bottom line. You're growing your market penetration. You're growing your understanding of the marketplace. You're growing your dominance of a particular product. You're growing. And you have to look at growth a little differently than some people look at growth as being just, how much are we growing in terms of revenue, and am I putting money in my pocket? So we would track lots of things in our businesses growing as we were growing. Things like how many customers we're serving every day. At one point, we were serving 3 million sports fans every day with our news operation. That was larger than anybody else at the time. And people were coming to our office to try to figure out how were we doing that. Well, we were doing that because we decided that that was going to be a metric that we paid attention to. And we focused on growth specifically because I knew that that would be something I could leverage in sales and marketing conversations. So when I went to Sprint, we talked about the growth of our research. Growth in this market, this sport, this sport, this sport. The growth in the use of video. The growth in the number of plays that are captured. So you want to think about growth in all of these aspects because that's one of the reasons why someone is going to want to do business with you, because you're focused on growth. And by the way, every one of you should have, you should be looking at these metrics all the time. So you shouldn't be just looking at, okay, where am I, at the end of the day even, or at the end of the week, or at the end of the month, but you should be looking at it all day. In retail, of course, they measure hour by hour. They measure this hour against last year this hour. They measure this hour against 3 years ago this hour. Now, if you want to open your eyes, do that in your business. Because then you'll realize you're not making money every day. Or some of you are not making money every day. So I remember when I worked at a restaurant all through high school, from midnight to 8 in the morning. And, which is another crazy thing that I did, because I wanted to work with this entrepreneur. And then I went to high school after that, the whole day. But he would call up and he would say, how are we doing now? Call 2 in the morning and say, where are we? And then he would say, wow, that is down, up, different than it normally is. At the time, the whole disco scene was really big. So people would come out of these discos and go into the restaurant and buy food and all this stuff. And he would be measuring how we're doing 1 week versus last week and the year before. And he was the first entrepreneur I knew who did that manually. He would do that in his head. He would do that on the back of a bag. And he had all kinds of papers that would keep track of that. Well, if you realize when you look at your business that you're not looking at your revenue and your growth and your profit and all of those elements hour by hour. Now, some of you might say, well, why would I look at it hour by hour? I get a deal once in a while. But once in a while revenue strategy doesn't work, right? That doesn't work. So the other thing that will happen for you is you start to look at it hour by hour, day by day, day part by